She got fired for saving a poor young man. But what he did next will haunt you forever. The clock struck noon in the buzzing heart of Maplewood, a small town that had seen better days. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and secrets shimmered beneath the surface like algae on still water. That day, the air hung heavy with anticipation, electric with unspoken tension. The town's beloved librarian, Lucy Harrington, had just strode out of the community center with steely determination in her eyes. Today, she was done playing by the rules. As she walked through Main Street, her heart raced. Just last week, she had witnessed something shocking, a glimpse of desperation. A young man, filthy and ragged, crouched in the alley, cradling a beat-up guitar. He strummed it softly, coaxing out chords that echoed with pain and hope. To most, he was invisible, just another ghost haunting the fringes. But Lucy couldn't ignore him. Something flickered inside her, a compelling urge to help. With barely a second's thought, she plunged into the alley, her voice a warm burst in the cold shadows. "Hey, are you okay? You need a sandwich or something?" He looked up, eyes wide, shimmering like shards of glass. The surprise mixed with fear on his face tore at her heart. She knew that moment would change everything, but she couldn't have foreseen the consequences. Word spread quickly, and within hours, the gossips were buzzing like hornets. "You heard about Lucy? Lost her job because she cared," they murmured, faces twisted with a mix of disgust and awe. What did it matter that the kid, covered in dirt and bruises, simply needed kindness? Lucy's act of compassion was viewed as an unforgivable mistake in a town ruled by judgment. People pointed fingers, whispered behind backs, and soon the beautiful library that once thrived bowed under the weight of small-town cruelty. With that unfair dismissal, an odd discomfort knitted itself into the hearts of Maplewood's residents. What happens when kindness is met with disdain? Lucy walked home, each step feeling heavier, the weight of collective judgment pressing on her chest like a stone. This was more than just revenge. It was something darker, the chill of fear settling in. What would happen to the young man she tried to save? Was he really just a victim in all this? Or did he carry secrets that could unravel even the most tightly woven lives? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sky darkened, an unsettling thought settled into Lucy's mind like an unwelcome guest. What had she unleashed? She never expected the young man, the one she'd wanted to save, might now hold her fate in his hands. Rumors began to circulate that even the harshest of town critics were starting to back him. As shadows crept across the front yard, something in the air shifted, thick with an ominous promise. This wasn't over. Her choice would ripple through Maplewood in ways she could never have imagined. What lurked beneath the surface of her well-meaning act? Lucy felt the prickle of unease crawling up her spine. Would she ever truly escape the consequences? The next morning, Lucy woke to the chill of uncertainty hanging over her like a fog that refused to lift. She glanced out the window, watching the town wake up, its people moving like shadows, eyes averted. Maplewood had transformed overnight, twisting her small haven into a place of whispers and sidelong glances. Determined to confront the storm head-on, she gathered her belongings and stepped outside. Each footfall echoed in her mind, a reminder of the ground she willingly forfeited. As she walked, the familiar storefronts she once loved now shimmered with an undertone of hostility. "I heard she lost her job for that freak," a voice cut through the air, sharp as a knife. Lucy stopped dead, her heart racing. She spun around to see Mr. Thompson, the owner of the local hardware store, shaking his head. Beside him, Mrs. Fletcher clutched her shopping basket, nodding in agreement. What a disgrace, she huffed. The murmur spread, venomous and slick. Anger surged through Lucy, a fire igniting in the pit of her stomach. How was it that empathy had become an act of rebellion? She had done nothing wrong. As she rounded the corner towards the alley, she was shocked to find several townsfolk gathered there, their faces twisted with curiosity and disdain. Among them, the boy she had tried to help, Mark. He sat against the brick wall, guitar in hand, strumming notes that hung in the air like a plea. Yet there was a difference. His eyes no longer shimmered with hope, but burned with something darker determination. Look at him. A woman spat, face contorted. He asked nothing but trouble. Lucy felt her chest tighten. Did they think she would abandon him? Mark noticed her. A flicker of recognition passing between them, a shared understanding built on a fragile thread of humanity. She took a step closer, but the crowd shifted, blocking her path. He doesn't deserve your pity, snarled a familiar voice. Jonas, the barber. People like him ruin good neighborhoods. Shouting erupted from the crowd, accusations flying wildly. Still, Lucy stood resolute, buoyed by the gravity of her actions. He is a human being. He deserves kindness, just like anyone else. Her voice cut through the chaos, surprising herself. But instead of backing her, they recoiled. The crowd murmured, their expressions darkening. Fear began to replace curiosity. What would happen next? Someone shouted, "Get away from him. He is dangerous." And just like that, the atmosphere twisted, a palpable tension cutting through the air. Mark's eyes narrowed, and in that moment, something sinister flickered in his gaze. "I didn't ask for your help, lady," he called out bitterly, strumming more violently. "You think kindness matters? It doesn't change a thing." Lucy's heart sank. What did he mean? Had her well-meaning intervention only made things worse? Did he know something she didn't? As he rose to his feet, his body language screamed of suppressed rage. Was it directed at her, or was it just the world that had turned against him? As the crowd closed in, ready to unleash their judgment, Lucy felt the world tilt beneath her. Everything she fought for now hung in the balance. Just then, a siren pierced the silence, an ominous wail growing louder, police lights flashing in the distance, moving closer. What now? Someone whispered in fear. Lucy turned, panic rising in her throat. She had hoped to make a difference, but now she was trapped in a storm. What would the arrival of authority bring to this chaotic moment? Was she destined to lose everything? Or could she still salvage this fractured town? The uncertainty loomed large like a storm cloud overhead. She had to decide, but what lurking chaos would they uncover next? The screaming sirens shattered the oppressive tension like a glass falling from a table. Lucy stood frozen, her breath catching in her throat as red and blue lights danced across the walls of the alley, illuminating the faces of the townsfolk twisted in expressions of fear and indignation. What now? The question hung in the air, charged with a mix of panic and anticipation. Before she could answer, two officers emerged from the squad car, their uniforms crisp and imposing. They strode toward the crowd, hands resting on their belts, eyes scanning the scene. One officer, a tall man with a weathered face, caught sight of Lucy, and Mark. Tension crackled between them, thick as smoke. "What's going on here?" He barked, his voice cutting through the noise. The crowd instinctively parted, eyes darting nervously from the officers to Mark. "This boy," Lucy started, words almost choking her as fear swirled around her. "He is not a criminal. He needs support." Mark shot her a look, a mixture of disbelief and anger. "I don't need your help. I can handle this on my own," he spat, loosening his grip on the guitar. The officer raised an eyebrow, taking note of the defiance in Mark's posture. "We're not here to judge," he said, "just trying to keep the peace. Can you step back, please?" The world blurred around Lucy. She felt like she was caught in a nightmare, an innocent gesture morphing into a spectacle for the entire town. The very people she had grown up with now watched her like she was a threat. The irony stung. They had all seen Mark's struggles, yet in their eyes, compassion had become a contagion. She felt the warmth of anger again, surging like a wildfire. You can't just let them condemn him, she shouted, pointing toward the crowd, swirling with murmurings. He deserves a chance. Step aside, snapped the second officer, his voice brusque. She hesitated, looking from the officers to Mark, who now glared defiantly at the ground. With a swift motion, he flung the guitar against the wall. The noise echoed, and for a heartbeat, everything stopped. People recoiled, eyes wide with shock. You think I'm worth saving? Mark's voice trembled, cracking under the weight of his words. You think any of this matters? You don't know what I've done. Lucy felt an icy shiver chase down her spine. What had he done? The crowd leaned in, hungry for this new revelation, whispers slithering through the air. Mark, please, she implored softly, desperate to bridge the gap that was widening between them. But the anger pooled in his eyes, growing like a storm cloud. Tell them what you did, he yelled, facing the crowd now, feeling his power surge in that moment. Tell them why you're really here. Gasps erupted from the people gathered, the atmosphere thickening with a sense of dread. Lucy gaped at him, confusion flooding her mind. Had he been hiding something from her? Her heart raced. What truth did he dare to drag into the light? Then, the sirens screamed again, a relentless wail that pierced through the thickening fog of tension. Lucy turned back to the officers, their expressions unreadable as they stood poised to act. Enough, the older officer shouted, stepping forward with authority. We need to defuse the situation. Mark, we need you to come with us for a moment. In that instant, Lucy realized this was spiraling out of control. The eyes of the townsfolk began to bore into her, filled with questions, judgments, and fear. She could almost hear the wheels turning. Could she make a stand without losing everything? Don't go, she whispered urgently to Mark, but he had already begun to step backward, allowing the officers to take control. But before he surrendered to them, he threw a parting shot over his shoulder. You think you can save me, Lucy? You have no idea what you're stepping into. The weight of his words hung like a lead balloon, heavy and suffocating. In that moment, she felt the gravity of all she had risked crash heavily against her. But just as the officers closed in, the shouts of the townsfolk crescendoed. What is really going on? They demanded. What have you done? Lucy clenched her fists, caught between fear and determination. She had to know what Mark meant. What had he done that could unravel not only his life, but hers as well? The sirens faded into the background, looming shadows of fate drawing closer. Could she uncover the truth, or would she become yet another victim to the chaos surrounding her? The storm was far from over. What other secrets lurked beneath Maplewood's surface? And who would pay the price for their pasts? Lucy felt her breath hitch as the crowd leaned in closer, eyes wide and filled with anticipation, as if they were spectators at a show that promised dark secrets and heavy truths. Murmurs bounced off the brick walls, chaotic whispers merging into a collective gasp when another officer arrived, creating a tighter circle around Mark. Just tell them the truth, the younger officer urged, but Mark's face transformed into a mask of defiance and fear. What truth? Lucy called out, desperation coating her words. Mark, don't. Her heart thumped loudly, drumming a chaotic rhythm as she felt something unspeakable looming. Stop, shouted the elder officer, raising his hands to approach again, but Mark shook his head violently, pushing against the tide of authority. Why should I? Mark sneered, eyes darting around the onlookers. They're all ready to throw me on the pyre. I'll just give them a reason. With swift, daring movements, Mark lunged forward, struggling against the officers. The air filled with tension, electric and volatile. Lucy stepped forward, fighting against the knot of panic in her chest. What does he mean? She pleaded, urgency clawing at her throat. She couldn't let him spiral deeper. Not now, when it mattered the most. You're not a monster, Mark. But he laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that cut through her like ice. You don't know me, Lucy. This isn't some hero story where you come in and save the day. I'm stained. The crowd was hushed now. The noise of sirens faded away, replaced by the raw reality of the moment. Mark's defiance sent shockwaves through the air, and as the officers tightened their grip, she could see they were at their breaking point. What have you done? Lucy urged again, but only the weight of silence answered her back. Struggling against the fetters of his own fears, Mark's expression softened for just a heartbeat, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability buried beneath his bravado. You really want to know? What I did is not just about me. It's about all of us. The crowd shifted uneasily, their expressions morphing from hostility to concern. Lucy's heart rocked with the rhythm of those words, as if they held a hidden truth that had the power to change everything. Just then, a voice emerged from the crowd, Carrie, an old acquaintance Lucy hadn't seen in years. Mark, we all watched you go downhill. You let your music die, we saw. What did you do that was so unforgivable? Mark's eyes flared. I had to do what I did to survive. He looked back at Lucy, desperation clinging to his voice like a shadow. But now you'll see the real monster. The older officer moved in closer, trying to yank Mark back. But Mark shoved him with one quick motion, and chaos erupted. Stop! This isn't a game. The officer shouted, trying to regain control. But Mark was consumed by the tempest of his emotions, his fears spilling into fury. Before Lucy could process what was happening, the onlookers were shifting, some taking steps backward, others leaning into the drama, drawn by a magnetic pull toward whatever dark secret was about to surface. Suddenly, Mark screamed, "You all stare like you've got a front row seat to my shame." But you don't know, he hesitated, a conflict ripping through him. I was there that night. The night they died. The words hung in air like a jagged knife, cutting into her reality. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave, as disbelief painted their faces. What night? Who had died? Lucy's heart raced, pounding like a war drum as fearful questions brewed in her mind. Had Mark been involved in something terrible? The very thought made her stomach churn. But she couldn't look away. Couldn't turn her back on him. Now, not when he was standing on the brink of something explosive. Just then, she felt her own strength coalesce, pushing away the doubt. Mark, she shouted, you have to tell them. You can't hide anymore. But as the looming specter of the past loomed large, Lucy wondered, would the truth save him, or would it drag everyone down into the abyss? Would he dare to confront his demons? And could she withstand the fallout? With the weight of the moment crashing down around them, she braced herself for the truth, knowing it would change everything. Would they make it out alive, or were they all destined to drown in the fallout of buried sins? Mark's fury cracked like thunder against the silence, and the crowd splintered into whispers and gasps, a living organism of confusion and fear. Lucy's senses sharpened, the color drained from her surroundings, leaving only the baleful glow of the street lamps. She felt the raw energy emanating from Mark, a trembling worry inside as his history loomed like storm clouds overhead. Mark, she pressed, stepping closer. The officers were still grappling with him, but something in her gaze seemed to strengthen him, or maybe it only fueled his resolve. You have to explain what you mean. You're not alone in this. Not alone. He sneered, eyes wild. You think that makes it easier? I was part of something wrong. Something terrible. He let out a shaky breath, his voice lowering. I saw it happen, Lucy. I couldn't say anything. I wouldn't let myself. The crowd leaned in, the tension tightening like a watchful vice. Each face reflected an emotion that climbed the spectrum. Horror, curiosity, sympathy, and above all, fear of the unknown. Their collective murmurings swirled around them, drowning out the sirens that had once seemed so loud. Mark, please, Carrie shouted from the back, her voice shaking. What did you see? His gaze darted around, meeting the eyes of those who were once his friends, their expressions stained with disbelief and queries. I saw them die, he shouted suddenly, rage slicing through the fear. And it was my fault. How? The demand rang out like a gunshot, chilling the very air, and Lucy instinctively took a step closer, feeling the heat of his shame radiating. I was supposed to protect them, he continued, his voice cracking. I was supposed to be the one to keep everyone safe. Instead, I was the one holding the knife. Gasps erupted. A knife? The horror magnified, twisting the atmosphere into something almost tangible. "Mark!" Lucy yelled, desperation clawing at her throat. "Stop! You're not a monster. You can do this. Please, don't let it eat you alive." But he seemed lost in the tempest of memories, now swirling within him, images of laughter drowned under the weight of guilt. The crowd now held its breath, wrapped around Mark's torment like a vine pulling the life from a tree. "I thought they were gone," Mark shouted suddenly, his voice raw with pain. "I thought I could forget." I thought his fists clenched, and then he collapsed to his knees, trembling. "But I can't." "And now they're here who?" Lucy asked softly, kneeling beside him, desperate for clarity in the chaos. "The others," he murmured, tears pooling in his eyes. "The ones who didn't make it, they haunt me. They're always there, telling me I didn't do enough." The crowd's fear twisted into an uneasy sympathy, an unspoken understanding that what lay buried inside any of them might one day crawl to the surface. Suddenly, from the back of the crowd, a voice broke the tension. You think you're the only one cursed?" It was an unfamiliar man, voice snarling with contempt. "You think sobbing will fix it? You want our pity? You're the coward, Mark, not us. You ran." That incited a ripple of anger. Lucy's heart raced as she shot a glance toward the officer. The man's eyes darted around, looking for support, his jaw set tightly. "Everyone!" Lucy raised her voice, grasping for control. "This isn't helping. We're all waiting for answers." But as chaos started to swell again, breaking like a wave against a storm-ridden shore, Mark's voice filtered through the noise. "I have to tell you the truth." Silence enveloped the crowd once more as Mark's eyes darkened with the weight of a confession. "They died because I didn't have the guts to stop it." That raw vulnerability dragged at the air, and her heart plummeted into the pit of her stomach, a dark omen whispering threads of fate. The truth was a beast that seldom revealed its face unscathed. As he stared into the crowd, Lucy felt an icy chill sweep through her. Was Mark ready to drag them all into the depths of his darkest fears? Could she still guide him back when he stood on the precipice of unfathomable truth? "What is the truth, Mark?" Lucy whispered, fear gripping hold of her words. And with the crowd's anticipation vibrating in the air, every heartbeat drummed out a singular question: what revelation would unfold? What dark secrets still lurked in the shadows, waiting to emerge like demons unleashed? With a breath that trembled with uncertainty, Mark finally gathered the strength to speak. "It wasn't just an accident. It was planned, something I never thought I'd witness." His words hung heavy in the stillness like storm clouds brewing on the horizon. Lucy could feel the unease ripple through the crowd. Whispers erupted again, mingling shock with disbelief. The man who had called him a coward stepped forward, anger etched on his face. "You're telling us it was a conspiracy? You're trying to shift the blame." Mark gripped his skull as if he could physically force the memories back. "No, I'm saying I turned a blind eye. I should have seen the signs. I should have acted." Lucy reached out, urging him to find a foothold in the chaos. "Mark, focus on us. Tell us who was involved. We can help." The crowd shifted, leaning in closer, but the hostility in the air cracked with tension. Mark's eyes darted around, desperately searching for an anchor. It was my brother's friends. They were tangled in something dark, drugs, violence. I thought I could keep my distance. If I stayed quiet, if I ignored it, they would leave me alone. But they didn't. Gasps filled the night. The gravity of his confession pulled everyone deeper into the void of his guilt. Lucy felt as if she were standing on quicksand, every word he spoke sinking her further into despair. "But that night," Mark continued, his voice trembling, "they came for him. I could have warned them, but I was scared. I should have stood up. Instead, I thought I could just run away." Tears streamed down his face, glimmering in the streetlight as they fell. The crowd was caught between sympathy and horror, like a pendulum swinging with violent quickness. "Mark!" Someone shouted again, voice rising in tragedy. "You can't blame yourself. What happened to them was not your fault." But the words seemed to cut deeper than knives. Mark shook his head, overwhelmed by the weight of their collective shame. But it's my fault they thought they could be invulnerable, that nothing would happen to them as long as I was turning my back. The unfamiliar man stepped in closer, shouting over the murmurs. You should have done something. Now it's too late. His voice was venomous, accusations dripping from every word. And just like that, Mark stood upright, defiance burning bright in his eyes. No, it's not too late. Not if I can face it. A spark ignited within him, as if the weight of guilt started to shift. I have to face what I ran from. If I don't, they won't rest. Lucy felt warmth radiating from his conviction. Then let us face it together. We're all here for you, Mark, she cried, her voice breaking through the mounting agitation. But as Mark met her gaze, shadows flickered in his eyes, a darkness deeper than despair. They won't let me. I thought I could escape them, but as long as I'm alive, they keep coming for me. They haunt me every night. Suddenly, a distant siren wailed, piercing through the tension like a knife. Heads turned toward the sound, uncertainty brewing again. The officers were regrouping, starting to push back the crowd. Lucy felt a rush of fear. They couldn't lose this moment. Let us take a step back, an officer called out, his voice attempting authority. This is a law enforcement matter. No, Lucy shouted, her heart racing. This is about helping a friend. But then a new voice sliced through, echoing from the shadows. You thought running would get you away from us, didn't you? The words dripped with malice as another figure stepped into the light, cloaked in darkness. Panic swept over Lucy. Who was this? What other secrets would this night unearth? Mark's face blanched, a ghost returning to haunt him. As the figure stepped closer, she could see the glint of something metallic in their hand, a knife, sharp as the accusations that had just flown. Mark, look out! Lucy yelled, but it felt as though time slowed, fear wrapping around her throat. In that split second, the air around them thickened. They were on the edge of something catastrophic. What would happen next with the truth? On the verge of being drowned out by hatred, Mark was about to reveal everything. But the end of the road kept shifting. The laughter of the ghost from his past loomed ever closer. What choice would he make now? Would he stand and fight, or walk into the darkness? And would Lucy find a way to save him before it was too late? The figure stepped closer, moonlight glinting off the knife as it sliced through the tension in the air. Mark's breath quickened, panic rippling through him like a dam breaking. His eyes were wide, caught in the contradiction of fear and an overwhelming sense of impending doom. Leave him alone, Lucy shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she stepped in front of Mark. Her heart pounded, but she refused to back down. She could see the figure's face now, a twisted sneer that fueled a primal instinct to protect the one she cared for. The man laughed, a chilling sound with a hint of madness, his intentions all too clear. You're getting involved in something you don't understand, girl. This isn't your fight. He brandished the knife tauntingly, its edge glinting ominously. Lucy felt dread wrap around her like a shroud. We're not afraid of you, she asserted, trying to regain control. But was that true? The knife's point reflected the flickering streetlights, stealing her bravado. Mark's gaze shifted from Lucy to the assailant, something primal rising in him. You don't have to do this, he pleaded, his voice a whisper battling against the weight of fear. I'll face whatever you want. Just let her go. The man's laughter grew louder, echoing harshly in the freezing night air. Face it, you've been running your whole life, and now you think you can just stand there and confront ghosts? Pathetic. Stop, Lucy cried, channeling every ounce of courage she had. Mark was worth the risk. If she had to stand in the face of danger for him, she would. You can't take him. He has done nothing wrong. But the figure took a step forward, the knife wavering slightly. He caused it. All of it. And you should stayed out of this. You don't know what you're dealing with. Mark's entire being trembled. Would this be the moment he finally faced the monsters that had haunted him? Or would it end in bloodshed? Suddenly, the sirens grew louder, and the shadows behind the man shifted. Panic danced in Lucy's chest as she sensed chaos already on the brink of exploding. Please just go, We'll talk. I'll help you. Whatever you want. But the man shook his head. It's too late. You're in deeper than you think. The knife glistened. Mark's heart raced, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. Then, just as he readied himself for a fight, a shout erupted from a distance. Hey! A group of officers emerged, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. The man's demeanor shifted, uncertainty flooding his eyes. Run! Mark shouted at Lucy. Without thinking, Lucy grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the alley. The figure hesitated, but only briefly. The fear in his eyes morphed into rage as he darted forward, the knife gleaming once more. Just ahead, the police officers were closing in, shouting commands to the man. Fear ignited in the air, sharp enough to cut. Lucy and Mark needed to move, but the tension stretched like a slow-motion nightmare. Mark, Lucy urged, tearing herself from the grip of fear and pulling him further along the alley. Behind them, the figure spun, encircled by officers like a beast preparing to strike. Don't look back, Mark shouted, but Lucy stole a glance, noting the wild eyes of the assailant. He was cornered now, dangerous as a wounded animal. Then, clashes of voices erupted, the officers demanding compliance, the figure twisting with fury. A shot rang out, slicing through the chaos, rendering Lucy frozen in place. She couldn't breathe, her heart stuttering. What would it mean? The sirens wailed louder, pouring dread into the night. Keep moving, Mark yelled, adrenaline propelling him forward. He wouldn't allow her to get taken, but she couldn't shake the dread. As they stumbled out into the street, chaos cracked open behind them, the sounds of struggle blending into the night. What had they run from, only to dive into another storm? Mark looked down at Lucy, determination glossing over his features. We need to get away from here now, before they find us. In that moment, their bond strengthened, under the weight of fear and desperation. But what lay ahead? With the darkness closing in behind, they sprinted onward. How much further could they run? Would those ghosts catch up before they could ever find safety? The night felt alive with whispers of dread, shadows lingering just out of reach. And in a heart-stopping moment, Lucy realized this battle was far from over. What would they uncover in their relentless pursuit of truth? They raced through the dark streets, the echoes of chaos still lingering in the air behind them. Mark's heart thundered in his chest as they dodged past flickering streetlights and down narrow alleys that felt like veins in a body of shadows. Lucy kept her grip on his hand firm, but they both knew the danger wasn't just in the man with the knife, it was everywhere. Where do we go? Lucy panted, trying to stay one step ahead of dread creeping into her thoughts. Mark glanced around, his mind racing. There's the old diner at the end of the block. It should be open, maybe we can hide there. As they ducked and weaved between stacked dumpsters and rusting cars, the sirens still blaring. Mark's mind swirled with thoughts of the figure's words, slicing deep into his frozen thoughts. You've been running your whole life. What had he been running from? What had he caused? Mark! Lucy's voice shot through his fog of confusion, sharp as the blade that had threatened them. Focus. We can't stop now. He nodded, forcing his thoughts back to the present. They reached the diner just in time, slipping inside as a pair of officers rushed past outside. The old bell above the door jingled eerily in the otherwise quiet space, a stark reminder of how vulnerable they still were. The diner felt comforting, lit by faded neon lights and filled with the scent of stale coffee and fried food. It was a refuge, but not a sufficient fortress. Lucy slid into a booth, keeping her eyes on the door. Do you think they're coming after us? I don't know, Mark said, his voice low, fighting to control the tremor that wanted to break free. But I can't shake what that guy said. He blames me for something I don't remember. Lucy's fingers danced nervously against the table. What if there's more to it? We need to figure out what he meant. If he's right, if he did cause something we can't just hide forever. Mark met her gaze, feeling the panic rise again. What if I did something terrible? What if I'm dangerous? You're not, she insisted, her voice firm. You've done nothing except protect me. Just like tonight. I can't believe you were willing to confront him for my sake. That means everything. An uneasy silence fell between them, shredded by their racing thoughts. The shadows of the past wrapped around him tighter. The flicker of the neon sign outside seemed to mock them, illuminating things better left in the dark. Suddenly, the door swung open. A gust of cold air swept in as a familiar face stepped inside Jack, the diner's owner and a friend from the neighborhood. "Mark, Lucy," he said, eyes wide with concern. "What happened? I heard the sirens. You two shouldn't be out there alone." "Jack, there's a guy with a knife," Lucy blurted, quickly explaining the situation, the urgency building in her voice. "He was after Mark. He knows something about him," she insisted. Jack shook his head, glancing towards the door as if expecting the storm to follow. "You two should lay low. I'll get the phone and call the cops to make sure everything's no." Mark interrupted, the words tumbling from his lips. "They wouldn't believe us, Jack. He's still out there, and if we tell them I fear what they might do. We need to figure this out together." Jack hesitated, but could see the fire in their eyes. "All right, but this is serious. You need to be cautious." As they huddled together over the sticky table, whispers blending with the clatter of dishes from the kitchen, a nagging thought pushed into Mark's mind. "Maybe there's a reason he found me tonight. Something I've been running from all my life." Lucy leaned closer. "Then we'll find out. But we need to be smart about it." Each passing moment felt like a ticking clock. Just when they thought they were safe, Mark's phone buzzed on the table, a text flashing on the screen that could only mean trouble. It's from an unknown number. Mark's voice fell to a whisper as he read the message. "You can't outrun your past. I'll find you." The air thickened, heavy with the weight of unseen shadows. Mark's heart dropped. The past was no longer a distant echo. It was closing in. What else had he been hiding? And who else was aware of the darkness he thought he had left behind? Lucy gripped his arm tighter, her eyes wide with fear. This battle was just beginning. The diner felt like a world on its own, but the shadows beyond the windows crept closer, tightening around them. Mark could feel the pulse of fear in the air, every breath weighted by uncertainty. Lucy's fingers intertwined with his, a solid anchor amidst the chaos. "Mark, what if we just left the city?" Lucy suggested, her voice a mix of desperation and hope. "We could drive as far as we have to. Just leave everything behind." As tempting as that sounded, Mark couldn't shake off the gnawing feeling inside. The darkness wasn't merely in the shadows outside, or with a knife-wielding stranger. It was inside him, too. "That won't solve anything, Lucy. If he knows about my past, where I go, he'll find me again." Jack returned to their table, worry etched into his face. "Okay, I called the cops, but they can't get here for a while. Is there really no way we can just leave? Would you?" Mark shot back, his voice sharp. "What if I'm a danger to you? To anyone?" Lucy's eyes flickered with hurt. "You're not dangerous. We're in this together. Just remember that." Then the diner went eerily silent. The clatter of dishes ceased, and even Jack paused, peering cautiously beyond the door. Had they heard something? Mark's heart raced, matching the rhythm of his thoughts, each more frantic than the last. Suddenly, the bell above the diner door jingled again. A figure stepped in, silhouetted against the dim light. The blood drained from Mark's face as he recognized the man, the one with the knife. "Mark," the man said, a sneer curling his lips. "Looks like you found a nice little hideout." His eyes darted to Lucy, lingering too long, as if assessing a newfound target. "Run," Mark shouted, grabbing Lucy's hand, pulling her back out of the booth. They dashed toward the rear exit, adrenaline driving them beyond fear. But the door creaked open slowly, revealing the alleyway behind the diner, a dark abyss that felt ominous. "Stop right there," the man ordered, his voice echoing off the brick walls, venom dripping from each syllable. "You can't hide from who you are, Mark. You know that." Terror surged through Mark, and he turned to Lucy. "We have to go." Their feet pounded on the pavement of the alley as they sprinted forward, but the echo of the man's taunts followed them like a sinister melody. "You think you can escape your past?" he called out. "Every choice you made will come back for you." They ran, not daring to look back, the alley twisting and narrowing like a maze. Mark's thoughts spiraled. Each footfall felt like an echo in a hollow cavern. What choices had he made? What past was he trying to outrun? As they finally emerged from the alley into the street, Mark looked at Lucy. "We need somewhere we can think. Maybe we could look out," Mark shouted as a shadow lunged toward them. They barely evaded as the man barreled past, twisting around to face them once more. His expression was one of pure fury, eyes burning with intent. "There's nowhere to go, Mark." In a swift motion, Lucy yanked Mark back, her instincts sharper. She spotted an open door of a nearby warehouse, its entrance dark and foreboding. "In there," she urged, pulling him with her. Mark hesitated, the darkness inside the building seeming to pulse with danger. But the man wasn't too far behind. They thrust themselves inside, slamming the door just in time, barricading it with a nearby crate. As they caught their breath amidst the silence, Mark glanced at Lucy. The fear in her eyes mirrored his own. What if we're trapped? What if our only choice is to face him? She squeezed his hand tightly, the warmth grounding him. "Then we'll face him together. But we need answers. If there is something you did, we have to find out what it is." The shadows in the warehouse shifted, and as they caught their breath, a faint sound caught their attention, the creaking of a metal door further inside, just beyond their view. "What was that?" Mark whispered, his pulse quickening. In that moment, the chilling realization dawned on both of them. This was more than a chase. This was a reckoning, and they were right at the epicenter. What awaited them in the belly of that darkened warehouse? Could the truth set Mark free, or would it drag them both into deeper peril? Mark and Lucy pressed their backs against the cold wall of the warehouse, bodies trembling with fear, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The creaking noise came again, sharper now, echoing ominously through the vast, empty space. It was a reminder that they were far from safe, trapped in a layer of shadows and secrets. "Do you hear that?" Mark whispered, his voice barely a breath. Lucy nodded, eyes wide with apprehension. "What if he finds us?" "We can't let that happen," Mark replied, a hint of determination cutting through his fear. "We have to find out who he is and what he wants with me. I can't let my past destroy us." "Right?" "Together," Lucy said, squeezing his hand tighter. With shaky breaths, they crept farther into the darkness, navigating the labyrinth of crates and machinery that loomed like silent witnesses. Each step felt monumental, the weight of unknown horrors and truth hanging in the air like the suffocating dust. They didn't know what awaited them ahead, but they couldn't let fear paralyze them. As they ventured deeper, the shadows danced ominously, and the faint sound of footsteps echoed behind them. Mark's heart raced at the thought of their pursuer, the man with the glinting knife. "Maybe we should split up?" he suggested, voice tense. "No," Lucy gasped, panic leaking into her tone. "We're stronger together. If we get separated, it'll be easier for him to pick us off one by one." "Okay," Mark conceded, steeling himself. "Let us just keep moving." Suddenly, a light flickered ahead, cutting through the murky darkness. It illuminated a small office, its door slightly ajar. Mark and Lucy exchanged a glance, and the urge to investigate outweighed their instincts to flee. They approached slowly, hearts pounding like war drums. As they peered inside, the sight that met them was chilling. Papers scattered across a desk, photographs pinned to the wall, images of Mark, of people he knew, faces twisted in fear, a web of connections stretching across the room. There was something sinister at work here, a network of torment entwining his past with the present. Beside the wall, a blackboard was filled with notes in hasty scribbles alluding to dark secrets and betrayal. Mark's breath hitched. "This can't be possible. How did he get all this? What do you think it means?" Lucy's voice was strained, her mind racing. "I don't know," Mark replied, grappling with fear and dread. "But it looks like he has been watching me. All this time I thought I could escape who I was. This proves I was just running in circles." "Mark, don't go there. You're not defined by this. You helped me tonight. You're not the monster he thinks you are." "Maybe I am," he said bitterly. "I've done things I'm not proud of." Suddenly, The door creaked loudly, and both of them froze, hearts pounding in their chests. The figure had found them, silhouetted against the dim light. Look who decided to finally face their past. He sneered, his voice dripping with malice. Get away from us, Lucy shouted as she instinctively stepped in front of Mark. Let her go, Mark yelled, adrenaline igniting the fire within him. You think you could just hide forever? The man laughed, stepping further into the light. His anger flared, revealing a side of chaos lurking beneath his surface. This was bound to catch up to you, Mark. You're still that scared little boy who ran when things got tough. In that moment, Mark felt the weight of years of shame pressing down on him like a ton of bricks. But just as the darkness threatened to swallow him whole, Lucy's hand clasped his tighter. It ignited something within him, courage, a resurgence of that earlier determination. I won't run anymore, Mark said, voice steady, confronting the shadows of his past. What happened back then doesn't define who I am now. The man recoiled, confusion flashing across his features. What do you even know? You think this is just going to go away? The venom in his tone matched the flash of anger in his eyes. Mark took a step forward, fueled by newfound strength. I know that I can't do this alone anymore. I've spent too long living in fear. If I truly want to move forward, I have to confront what's haunting me. Is that so? The man scoffed, gripping the knife tighter, muscles tense. You still don't get it. You're in over your head. In a split second, Mark made his decision. Maybe this is more than about me. Maybe it's about everyone you've hurt along the way. The man's expression darkened, and Mark could see the shadows of despair clash against his resolve. They both stood on the precipice, audience to the weight of unspoken truths. Let us finish this, Mark said, stepping forward more confidently. The tension tightened like drawn strings, each heartbeat displacing the veil of uncertainty hanging between them. Suddenly, Lucy interjected, You can't keep using fear as your weapon. Mark is not alone anymore, and neither are you. For the first time, the assailant hesitated, confusion rippling through the air. Mark noticed the cracks forming in the armor, the anger faltering, like cracks in ice before it collapses. Face it, Lucy shouted again, emotion thick in her voice. Let's help you break away from that darkness before it consumes you. The man's grip faltered just slightly, eyes darting between Mark and Lucy. There was a flicker, just a flicker of recognition, vulnerability. Something inside Mark stirred like the echo of an old memory. Think about what you've done. You don't have to live like this either. There is still time to change. With that, the world felt suspended, as if the very air held its breath, waiting, anticipating what would unfold. I can't, the man whispered, breaking for just a moment. I've lost, no, Lucy urged. You can still choose. In that moment, under the weight of honesty and confrontation, the man faltered. His defenses began to crumble, and the knife trembled in his grasp. Mark stepped forward again, vulnerability pouring from him. I know how it feels to be haunted. I'm ready to face my past. You can join me or let it overcome you. And in that lingering moment, a bond forged in the fires of confrontation, the truth capable of untangling the tightly knotted threads of despair. Mark, Lucy, and the figure stood on the brink of change, a fragile truce forming in the shadowed depths of the warehouse, waiting for someone to take that leap into the light. Together, Mark finally said, and in the echo of those words, they found their answer. Yes, they had to face whatever came next, but not alone. As dawn broke, they stepped into the light, ready to rewrite the story they had almost succumbed to, together paving the way toward healing. Hope glimmered like the new day on the horizon, but only time would tell if they stood strong against the looming aftermath of their pasts. Now, you can't let this moment pass without engaging. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that could be just as powerful. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Don't be shy, flood the comments section with your thoughts about the ending, your reactions, and your theories. Beat that keyboard up and let your voice be heard. And shout it from the rooftops, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. You are part of this family, and we're in this together.